Hey, everybody, welcome live from Chicago. It's the Sports Doctor. I'm Dr. Bob Weil, sports podiatrist. All things sports medicine, fitness, and wellness, brought to you by Global Schoolwear, school uniforms by Tommy Hilfiger, LER, Lower Extremity Review, magazine, UK Health Radio, and Populate Electronic Medical Records. We've got a great doubleheader today. Dr. Josh McConkey, he's a longtime emergency room physician, a decorated combat veteran, and author of Be the Weight Behind the Spear will be joining me, along with Mark Prensky. He's keynoted in 50 countries, multiple book author. His latest is Third Millennial Kids. He's all positive perspectives, all things for today's young people. Then the Sports Doctor's in with some Dr. Bob wisdom, your emails. Dr. Josh Blackjack McConkey, welcome to the Sports Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Weil. I'm very excited to be on the show today. You got a great show.
Give us some background on yourself and your illustrious career.
Yeah, I grew up in a very small town out in rural Nebraska. Entire family of lineage of railroaders. So my father, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather were all railroaders, and I broke the mold. I was the first McConkey to go to college. So was very motivated in that small town. Went to a small school, Chadron State College, for big sports fans up there. Don Beebe and Danny Woodhead are alumni from there, the two-time Harlan Hill Trophy winner, Division II football. And then went to med school in Nebraska and took a direct commission in the Army National Guard. Spent 9 years on the Army side, one combat tour in Iraq, and flew medevac and one air assault. It scared the heck out of me. I switched over to the Air Force after that and have been working as a flight surgeon and critical care air transport doctor.
So that's where the Blackjack, Dr. Josh Blackjack McConkey comes from, flight surgeon.
Yes. Yeah, that's my call sign, yes.
Being a long-time veteran, as well as a veteran in the world of the emergency room, with all that brings to the table, and those has got to be, again, some real challenges as far as the capability, the fitness, the health of our armed forces, which has been challenged over the decades with obesity epidemics and other kinds of things. And what are some of your thoughts regarding some of these your challenges in the healthcare world with your experience as an emergency room physician and the military?
So it is a huge epidemic as an emergency physician. I mean, I can almost attribute probably over a third or a half of what I see on a daily basis can almost be directly related to obesity and being overweight, with cardiovascular illness, diabetes, injuries, chronic pains, hips, knees, and lower extremities, which is your specialty there. And then on the military side, it's been a very difficult challenge. I've taken over as military commander over the past 2 years at Andrews Air Force Base, and I see in this younger generation, maybe 18 to 25-year-old airmen that 23, 24 years ago when I was in the military, I just didn't see as much of that. And now as a military commander, having to counsel men and women that at age 20 can't pass a fitness test, overweight. It's been a very unique challenge. We're getting a smaller and smaller percentage of the American population that's physically fit enough to serve in our military. And as a commander, I'm telling you, it's very concerning.
That's why, Dr. Josh, one of the most frequent topics over the decades on the Sports Doctor has been the challenge of childhood obesity and everything that brings to the table. This is the Diabetes Prevention Month as we're speaking. And that's one of our country's most incredibly aggressive scourges, so much related to lifestyle, diet, nutrition. They had to rename type 2 diabetes because they were seeing it in so many children. And so nutrition, big part of everything that flows from what you would see in the emergency room. Isn't it great that medicine is finally paying much more attention to the nutrition side?
Oh, yeah, they better, because it has
right.
Huge healthcare effects later on in life as well. You have to start young. You can't change that mentality and that lifestyle in a 30 or 40-year-old. right? I mean, they're pretty much set in their ways. You got to get them while they're young.
I think a lot of people don't realize that, as we were watching the challenge of recruitment for the military, which was the fact that obesity, like you mentioned, truly was getting in the way of these guys being able to join forces because of the obesity concern.
Yeah, the pool of applicants has become measurably smaller, and then there's such a large margin of them that can barely make it initially, and then within 1 to 2 years of service, generally the weight gain is piled back on, and I have to deal with that as a commander on the discipline and physical fitness side of things. That's a huge part of being in the military, is being physically fit enough to do your job and serve in combat. And I've seen a lot, unfortunately, that are not able to do that.
Oh, yeah, I can't tell you how many orthotics I put in combat boots over the years.
Yeah, absolutely.
In one regard or another. And the fact, again, that the fitness side, some of our greatest athletes, I mean, you're talking about such challenging situations, both physically as well as mentally. And I know that you're also very involved, again, and how this relates to the general population health care. And you make a big deal out of, your men's health tips over 40 also, don't you?
Yes. I have a good segment on that I've done on a couple of shows. It's been very well received.
Because, again, we see the concerns about screenings. I have colleagues in the world of podiatry for years have been trying to get routine foot screenings, diabetes foot screenings, because they claim that 80% of amputations, diabetes-related, are preventable. Shocking when we think about that. Of course, podiatry has been involved with the wound care of the foot and these kinds of relationships. I guess the education remains a major challenge in any of these areas, doesn't it?
It does, and that's certainly something I see a lot in the emergency department, those late-stage complications and infections, and some nasty feet.
What are some of your thoughts and bullet points with your book, Be the Weight Behind the Spear?
So my book it's a call to action for Americans to really engage their communities. I want to utilize our best resource that we have in this country, and our country's best resource is people. So teachers, coaches, volunteers, mentors, and families. That is what makes this country great. With 23 years in the military, I've worked with special operations, and some of these men and women do amazing things. You talk about being like Division I or NFL level, athletes. Each one of these members has had someone in their life that gave them the amazing confidence they have. Teachers, coaches, volunteers. I mean, they're jumping out of planes, doing crazy things underwater, taking down bin Laden. I can't do those things, but I can certainly be the weight behind their spear on the military, like medical support, side of things. And in the communities, like teachers, coaches, volunteers, they all have a role to play in developing our future. And we need to get more people engaged because those decisions and those things that they do matter every single day.
Well, these are a big deal also, Dr. Josh, when I talk about a lot youth sports. One of the reasons I co-authored the book, #HateSportsParents, was the epidemic, in capital letters, everybody, in youth sports overuse injuries, both physically and mentally. And again, when you mention coaches, you mention families, you mention school districts, all these things become very, very involved, sometimes getting way out of line. We could all envision in our mind the overzealous parent on the sideline, or some of these incredible hassles we've had with overuse of pain medicines and tremendous abuse with team doctors and some of these other things. So again, your main thought of getting everybody involved as much as possible in a positive way, I would imagine, is well received by some of these populations. I'm hoping so.
Yeah, it's been very well received. I think multiple book awards and do a lot of speaking engagements. And when you talk about some of those, injuries, and you see the use of opiates and the narcotics as an emergency doctor with 20-some years, that's very near and dear to my heart.
Share of overkill. There's such overkill in youth sports, traveling teams, club teams. My grandson played like 10 years old, 9 basketball games over a weekend. There's this tremendous overdoing in so many different areas. And this it burns a lot of people out. It burns a lot of these kids out, as well as causing all sorts of, again, overuse problems in so many different areas. What's the best website people could find out about your book and the work that you do, Doc?
Yeah, thank you. WeightBehindTheSpear.com. So WEIGHT, WeightBehindTheSpear.com.
And again, when you're talking about the medical cooperation, the mind-body attention that we've really, really seen over the past 10 to 20 years. 20 years ago, if you mentioned mindfulness or mind-body, doctors looked at you like you were nuts in so many ways, including nutrition. And there was one of the things I thank many of my colleagues in the world of chiropractic medicine. Eons ago, they paid big attention to exercise, and they paid big attention to nutrition. And general medicine really kind of scoffed at a lot of that, but a lot of that is changing, although sometimes begrudgingly, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it's hugely important. You'll see it with your high-profile athletes. In our special operations community, I served as medical director for Combat Search and Rescue, and they have their own. They have their own sports nutrition, athletic trainers. So they had a very defined.
I hope you had these
diet.
Guys strengthening their feet and ankles, Dr. Josh. I'm telling you.
Yes, sir. Well, as much as these guys are jumping out of airplanes and helicopters, yes, that is very important.
Yes. Well, in a couple of weeks, I have a Navy SEAL coming on, and a lot of the work that he's doing. And we were talking about the fact that, again, these special ops, Green Berets, and the special names with some of these groups, truly are the high end of any kind of physical athletic capabilities, both physically and mentally, big time.
Yeah, my cousin is a special operator. He just retired. And he told me a story. He was a combat. He was first was a combat controller, and literally they, as an exercise, and just to see how long you can hold your breath and how well you trust your team, they tied him to a bench, dropped it into a pool, and started the timer. And the team had, say, how long can you hold your breath? Hopefully long enough for your team to rescue you before you drown. So, I mean, that's a physical endurance, but the mental part of that, I don't know anybody other than my cousin that would be dumb enough to do something like that.
Right.
So you have to have these guys are crazy.
Yeah, wait till he hears the replay of the show, Josh. You'll be in trouble. But again, the idea on the one hand, the elite of the elite, such tremendous prowess in so many ways, and then what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, which is the challenge of the health and wellness of many of these recruits, and the fact of obesity being so dramatically in the way, and in the emergency room, like you said, so many different problems you see physically have to do a lot with the health and wellness side, and this is what is an amazing dilemma.
And you'll see those effects on the mental health side of things as well. It's all tied together. I mean, you really have to look at that whole body approach.
I'll tell you, Doc, I have people on from all over the world and all sorts of vocations and professions, and the mental side of things, mental health, gigantic topic. This is why there was so much accolades for the Simone Biles, Michael Phelps, the great Olympians who came out and talked about mental challenges, because it's always been a stigma. It still is, isn't it?
It is. They had a great platform to bring awareness to that. As an emergency physician, that's what I see: anxiety, depression, and unfortunately some suicides. And the more you can get out there and let people know and talk about that and seek help.
Between the pandemic, between COVID and social media, good luck to us in so many ways. I mean, that anxiety side, and again, where you would see so much from A to Z in the emergency room situations, and try to realize how much is related to the mental side of things. That's why on the Sports Doctor we call it the mental game. It includes all this stuff, Dr. Josh.
Yes.
And again, the dependence many times, even on over-the-counter pain medicine for a lot of these high school athletes, Dr. Weil, don't you understand? My son's ankles are killing him. If he doesn't take 2 Advil twice a day, he can't play. And, or he won't make the team, or other kinds of challenges many times. So again, I get back to these coaches and teachers that maybe you're speaking to and who might be reading your book to get a hint about how important these things are.
Don't take the fun out of the game. I mean, they need to be playing different sports, using those different joints and movements, just that those repetitive injuries take their toll on kidneys. And when you're talking about those medications,
that's
stomach issues, ulcers.
Tremendous point, Dr. Josh. Again, in so many areas, everybody talks about, again, can we keep the fun with these kids, at least till they're 12, or something like that. Give me the site again. People can find out about the book. I knew the time would fly with you, Josh.
Yeah, yes, sir. WeightBehindTheSpear.com. WEIGHT.
Fantastic stuff. Again, thank you so much for your service. Keep up the great work. We'll definitely have you back sometime in the future. Dr. Josh Blackjack McConkey. We'll be right back, everybody. It's the Sports Doctor.